Hello everyone and welcome to Guidebound. This is a series where I'm going to be going through a game and completing it using the strategy guide associated with it. In this case, the game is StarCraft Brood War. There may be a couple of questions that are already rising, such as, why am I doing this in the first place? And to be honest, it's because I felt inspired for a couple of reasons. One, I really love strategy guides and the physical aspect of them, and knowing that an author along with the developers worked together, I really appreciate that. There's another reason in that I recently came across someone on YouTube called Pathalarix, and he's going through World of Warcraft in his Guidebound series, and I thought that was a really unique challenge that he set for himself, and so I wanted to do something unique and something that I appreciate as well in a game that I've loved for a very long time at this point. Before we go any further, there are a couple of rules that I have set in order to go through the game of StarCraft Brood War using the guide. One, I have to follow the guide. That is it. Anything that is outside of it, I cannot use. So if the author says, build 10 Marines, I'm going to build 10 Marines. If he says to place structures in a certain part of the map, that's exactly where I'm going to do my best to place them. There's a second rule though, in that I need to use the physical strategy guide. For the purposes of the video, anytime I mention something about it, I'll show the PDF version because that makes it really simple and convenient when I'm trying to point something out. But as I'm going through it on my side, I'm using the physical version in order to simulate as close as I can what it would be like to go through the game when it released in 1998 with the guide. There might be another question that comes up, such as why am I starting with Brood War instead of going with the original StarCraft? And the main reason is because I previously did a series called By the Guide on StarCraft, where I went through the entire game including the story along with the strategy guide and the strategies inside of it. In this case, I really wanted to go through Brood War, specifically focusing on the strategies and see how they worked and if I could actually complete the missions. So that's what this will be based on. I should probably also mention that I have a very long history with StarCraft because I did originally play it when it released in 1998 and have gone through the campaigns for both the original and Brood War more times than I can count. And so I think this will be a really nice way to go through the game in something that's different and fresh and a way that I've never tried before. So with that, why don't we jump into the first mission and see exactly what we're supposed to be doing according to the strategy guide. First things first, we should probably look at the map because it says the name is Escape from Aiur, and for anyone that doesn't remember, the first StarCraft ended with the Overmind being destroyed by Artanis of the Protoss, so now we need to escape the homeworld of the Protoss called Aiur. You know, when I'm looking at the map, the first thing that sticks out to me is the attention to detail because I appreciate all of the arrows and the symbols. That's going to make it really easy to follow this as we go throughout this level, so that's always nice to see. Something else when we look at the bottom, I do see a couple of symbols. So an X stands for Nidus Canals, and then a circle in a circle is for reinforcements, and a solid circle are Ultralisks. So now that we see a basic game plan of how we're supposed to move throughout the level, and we see a couple of letters spread throughout it, so that must be something the author talks about at some point, let's see what the author does have to say about the first step we should be taking. This is really surprising, but he says that we should not worry about grouping our units, which is very interesting because it feels like that's the first thing I always do in any strategy game. So for now, we will not do that. We will simply select all of them and then mass attack to the next area, which he says all we do is, send our units into the bloodbath on the other side where the enemy is. So that sounds like it should be easy enough given the first mission here. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. Just grabbing all of my units and attacking. No groups taking place at this moment. Well, as we expected, pretty easy given that this is the very first objective that we are supposed to be doing in the first level. Nothing too crazy. If anyone remembers the first mission of the very first StarCraft, that one has you only building 10 Marines, so this is a little bit of a step up compared to that. Well, I'm going to briefly pull up the guide again because I want to see what we're supposed to do next. Of course, we move south, which we saw on the main map. But it looks like the author has some specific notes to go through this next section quickly and aggressively. We're going to meet a couple of zealots and they're going to take us to a large fight that is taking place. Of course, we need our hero unit, which is going to be Zeratul. If I click on him, one of the coolest characters in the entire game. Love the voice actor that did this so much. Such amazing work. But I'm gonna give it my best shot to try and do this quickly and aggressively, as the author said. I'm not sure how to translate this into the game world, so let's see how it unfolds. Okay, this is not quickly and aggressively because they're getting trapped on each other, but okay, it's going all right so far. We'll continue down. I'm going to ask my troops nicely if they could be aggressive, please. That would be really appreciated if you could all be aggressive. Okay, I don't know if I need to give them any other kind of a pep talk, because now we're meeting those other zealots that we were told to follow. So, alright troops, again, if you could just kindly be aggressive, I would really appreciate it. That's the best pep talk I can imagine giving right now, so certainly hope that is sufficient. Zeratul can run around and get these Nidus canals, which the author said we should focus on, while everything else is being attacked right now. So we'll continue doing that. Okay, well, I feel like this went pretty well. I would still prefer if I could actually group my units at this point, but it's fine that we're not. That's actually working out pretty well. Just don't want to have any stragglers like this over there. Okay, very briefly, let's pull up that next section of the guide and see what the author says to do after this. Alright, for the next section, it looks like the author says he wants us to again be aggressive and go to checkpoint B, but we need to be cautious because there's a lot of Zerg defenses that we're going to find there. And then after that, we go to checkpoint C, where we dispose of an Ultralisk, which is a very powerful Zerg unit. After that, we go to checkpoint D, and we meet up with some additional units we'll find, like Templars, Zealots, and even an Archon, which is great. So let's go ahead and start that. Okay, once again, oh geez, see, that's the issue when trying to not group my units here. I have to constantly select multiple ones. Maybe I saved more than they initially expected me to save here, but okay, so far so good. Even more units for me to group and select, so you know what, I'll take the reinforcements, really appreciate it. Okay, once again troops, would really appreciate some aggressiveness here. Okay, be aggressive. I think our aggressiveness is working out, because so far it seems like it's going okay. Oh geez. Yeah, definitely get Zeratul attacking these large units. Oh geez, yeah, see, I'm actually losing a lot of my units over here and forgetting them. Although I'm holding true, I am not grouping my units yet. I haven't seen a note in the strategy guide that's telling me to group them, so I am holding off on that. Okay, and then per the map, we're supposed to go up to the left here. Ah, run, Dragoon, run, no! There we go, okay, very good. Ah, perfect. Okay, here are those additional units that we were on the lookout for. We can also, of course, use this shield battery to recharge the shields, primarily, I would suppose, of Zeratul here. There we go. What does the author say now that we have all of these units in place? Let's take a look at the next step. We want to use these Templars that I have here on the screen that are selected, both of these two right here. And we want to get to the next area and have them use a couple of storms around the Nidus Canal. It's actually really helpful. I really appreciate the author mentioning that specifically we want to try and use 3 or 4 hits of Psionic Storm. That tells us that we're not trying to use everything. But we also need to be careful because if we use the Storm ability with both of them selected, it'll just cast them both at the same time, so we want to only select one. And this is going to be a little bit more challenging than normal because I have no groups yet. So we'll just try to individually click them. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so I'm trying to move my units over here. It's a little difficult, but here we go. Okay. 1, 2. Okay, let's just attack because my units are getting a little bit clogged up here. Well, I mean, I got a couple of storms off, so that was fine. Could have been a little bit smoother, but you know what? Not too bad overall. We have a lot of units that we've been able to save so far, so I think things are going all right. So now we're going to go to checkpoint F, it looks like, according to the author, and he wants us to not rush in, but again, use a couple of psionic storms around some buildings where there's going to be burrowed Zerg. Okay, so checkpoint F is a little bit further down the map. Afterwards, all we're going to do is run past that area as we're fighting and get to checkpoint G, where we're going to fight another Ultralisk, and then get to the Warp Gate, which is the end of the level, and we need to get Zeratul, our main hero unit, to be able to go there, and that's it. So let's see how this unfolds. Probably going to be pretty easy. Actually, the biggest trick as I'm trying to start this right now is to not have everybody go at once. He said not to rush, so I'm very diligently trying to not rush right now. Okay, no, please don't rush. Come back. Here we go. Okay, using some storm. Here we are. Anything? No. Okay, well, you know what? It was worth a shot. I at least attempted it. I think one of the storms got some people, so you know what? Good enough. Oh, geez. Okay. Don't want the Templars going in like that. Oh, geez. You know what? You can both attack. All of you are going to attack down. And let's go and do this. I think this is going well so far. Okay, a little bit of things going on here. But he does say I can storm this Ultralisk. So let's do that without too much friendly fire. Yeah, you know what? This is going really well. All we're going to do now is attack the base and just... He mentions to have Zeratul run over to this Warp Gate. That's all we're going to do. He doesn't even need to attack. And perfect. Just like this, we are able to evacuate all of our Protoss brethren through this Warp Gate. And that should be the end of the level. Rainer's going to stay behind along with Phoenix to try to help us defend. And then we're going to go through the Warp Gate. So, done with the mission. That went very well. Definitely a great strategy so far. We're now in Mission 2, and we were able to escape, and we're on the Dark Templar homeworld, which is called now the Dunes of Shakuras. Unfortunately, the Zerg have already made it here when we pull up the map, and we see quite a bit going on, but I really appreciate again the level of detail. It makes it so helpful to see where the arrows are pointing us. We even see some M's for minerals and V for Vespene. Super helpful to know where we can expand, and no doubt the author will probably point us to that as we read the strategy guide. But we see our start location in roughly the top middle, and then we need to go to the left to establish our base. But what does the author have to say? Let's take a look at that as well. Outside of setting up the base and making sure that we prepare for a couple of Zerg attacks along the way, we definitely need to place a series of photon cannons, which works out really well because on the map, we see at the bottom that a solid circle is to place photon cannons here. So we'll do that at those specific locations. For now, why don't we go ahead and move over to the base in order to establish that. Alright, so we were able to establish the base. We built a couple of photon cannons as the author suggested around the mineral fields. Have everything pretty much set up and ready to go. So what is the next stage the author says that we should be looking at doing? So he suggests that we take at least one of the two major resource fields on the map before assaulting the main Zerg base. He suggests that we go to the map's lower left corner because it makes a good staging area, so that is exactly what we'll do. He also suggests to place a series of photon cannons near the ramps to the south, and he has a picture in the strategy guide where he shows 4 specifically, so even though there's 2 dots on the map, this image shows 4, so I will go with 4 because that will make it extra secure. Okay, I built those photon cannons to look almost exactly like the author suggested, so why don't we move down and take that second base so we can get some additional resources in. As we move down, pretty light defenses, nothing too crazy. It looks like we have a pretty strong force even with some of the initial starting units we have, so easily taken. The only thing is we have to wait a little while for this creep to recede before we can actually expand here. Looks like those defenses are coming in extreme handy because they are placed very well, so appreciate it, author. This was a very great piece of advice. Oh geez, and just like that, trying to expand over here, getting assaulted a little bit by some Mutalisks. Forgot the name for a moment, but able to defend pretty easily, nothing too crazy. Especially again, level 2 only so far. As we take this second mineral field and build a nexus, we also have some photon cannons now as the author suggests, so we can defend in case we get attacked again. And he gives us some specific advice. He wants us to build 12 zealots, 12 dragoons, and at least 2 reavers, but he says 3 or 4 would be better. So that's the force we'll build up before we make our final assault on the Zerg base. Alright, well, we are now ready when we jumped ahead here and have the force that the author suggested. All of the zealots, the dragoons, and then also these reavers here. Interestingly, he wants us to lead with the reavers, and I guess it does make sense because when we face off against some of the structures, he mentions that they can take it out pretty easily given their incredibly high damage with their scarabs. Oh geez, the only thing is they're very vulnerable, so when you lead with the reavers, they can get attacked very easily. So let me see how I can get this to go. There we go. Of course, he also suggests that we need to constantly resupply the scarabs, which is very expensive because they are 15 minerals per shot. So we'll keep supplying them here. Alright, the only downside about having reavers and everyone in the Protoss army is pretty large for their hitbox, so it can cause a lot of traffic jams, which is no surprise to anybody that has played StarCraft before in their life. But you know what? We do our best, and it's part of the charm of the game. I still absolutely adore and love it, so that does not make a difference to me. Well, we have now made it to the main base, and our assault has been going really well. Our reavers were able to knock out a lot of the structures, even though they are pretty vulnerable. So just as the author said, the strategy has been working very well. Here's a relatively big fight. Always nice to see all the troops in action, so I don't know. These battles are so crazy. It's something that stands the test of time to me. It doesn't matter how many times I play this game, how many times I go back to it. Just so amazing every time. One of my favorite parts is when we get to the end of these missions and you just start to take out all of the enemy structures and their overlords. I don't know what it is. Definitely something satisfying about that when you're going through this. Taking out the last structure, sure enough, here's the victory screen, so we've done really well so far. Why don't we continue? First things first, in Mission 3, I'm going to pull up the map and we see it's called Legacy of the Xel'Naga. And we start on the right-hand side, and if we go to the top left, there's a number 1, and it looks like that's going to be a base expansion for us. First of all though, I really love the contrast of this map. It looks really nice how you have some of these light and dark areas. I am not an artist, but this is only coming out of me, probably because I've been watching some Bob Ross lately, and that is where my mind is currently going, but I definitely appreciate it regardless. Why don't we look at what the author says for the first step we should be taking on this mission? So sure enough, he says there's 2 primary resource areas, and we will definitely want to take over them both. But first, we should look at building 4 proton cannons at the south end of our base while we do structures and technology and upgrade everything. So perfect, why don't we initially start that? The author also mentioned that right here at the very beginning of the level, we get some of these units flying over for support, and going to that resource area 1, he did advise that once they drop their dragoons, that we have them attack specifically all of these different, what are these called? The sunken colonies. Almost forgot that for a moment. But yeah, nice and easy. We don't want them to attack that other stuff. We want to have them go over there, although I'm making it so my own units can't attack. That was kind of inefficient. Hopefully nobody dies here. Let's run you back. Okay, well, you know what? Everybody can marvel at my wondrous skills here. Definitely a pro player on display, so yeah, that was kind of ridiculous. But you know what? We still have a few units left over, so overall, success. Okay, here we are building those 4 photon cannons at the south of the base so we can be nice and easily protected. The author says that's just about all that we need. He also mentions that we should take as the next step... Oh gosh, okay. Well, you know what? I didn't expect to be attacked so quickly, but thankfully I have the Dark Templars here in the main base, so we are all set. Okay, now that we've fended off that initial attack and we have the 4 photon cannons officially built, what is the next thing that the author advises we should do next? He mentions that we should take our Dark Templars and then also move them over with a probe to that resource area 1, build a nexus, a couple of pylons, and then additional photon cannons south of that field to make sure and fend off the Zerg attacks. Perfect. Well, that's easy enough, so we'll just move everybody on over and get that all set up and squared away. Oh my gosh, okay, wow. I am getting attacked way more than I expected. Please, run down, quickly! I don't want to lose this. That would be not preferable. Whew, okay, there we go. That was very close. Let's try and micromanage a little bit here. Wow. Okay, well, you know what? We survived just barely. So now I'm going to move my units back over and continue trying to construct this base. Okay, you know what? We have the base established now, the second one over by the resources, additional photon cannons, plenty of units gathering resources, or probes rather, getting the resources. What is the next thing the author would like us to do? So he mentions that we should spend time to climb the tech tree completely and upgrade all of our units to the max. So that'll definitely take some time, and we'll make sure to do that. But then he says to address our attack force. Oh gosh, I'm actually being attacked, so hang on just a moment. I was trying to read this while I had this active. I would like to not always pause it every single time that I read the guide, so you know what? We will just deal with it and continue to build up. But to go back to what the author said, he mentions that we should make sure and have a specific force to attack the Zerg. He wants us to have at least 6 scouts, 4 Corsairs, and 5 shuttles, and then numerous ground forces. That will include Reavers, Zealots, Dragoons, and most importantly Dark Templars, because only Dark Templars can destroy the Cerebrits, which, by the way, that's what we're doing in this mission. We're supposed to attack that other island that has Zerg on it in order to take over a Xel'Naga temple, which is an ancient artifact, and they're the race that actually created the Protoss. So that's our goal in this mission, and it's being guarded by Cerebrits, who can only be killed by these Dark Templar. Alright, well here we are. Everything is fully upgraded. I have 3 out of 3 upgrades and research on all of my air units. Same with my ground units. I have a pretty balanced attack force of these Dragoons, the Zealots, the Dark Templars, a couple of Reavers. I have those 6 scouts that the author suggested, and then same with the 4 Corsairs and 5 shuttles. So I feel like we are now good to begin the assault. When I look at the map, he wants us to gather on this staging area that is near that second resource site and attack from the top towards the Zerg base. He wants us to try and use the disruption web ability from the Corsair, which of course is a great suggestion, but we'll see how I can manage this given that my actions per minute are extremely low. So I don't know, we'll just see how it unfolds. Okay, so if I take this little by little, I'm just going to have one of my Corsairs come over here and do a disruption web, and then I'll have all of my... Oh, geez. Okay, that was way more than I thought. So let me go over here and do that. And I don't remember the key binding. There we go. Okay, got it. Now let's run in, be prepared to redo this, because it's going to end pretty soon. Bring over another one, and just continue. There we go. Okay, so far it's going good. All I have to do is continually rotate this. It's going really well. Yeah, very good. Alright, that was a lot less painful than I thought it was going to be, considering my micro ability is not very good. So, okay, now we can actually begin the official assault. I haven't brought over my entire attack force, but it does feel like it's going well so far. All I need to do is continue pushing in. It seems like, of course, I am going to lose a few units, but nothing too crazy as I go through this. I think it's safe to say that while I continue the assault, I should go back and bring my shuttles in order to get new units. So while the assault is happening, let's do that. Just bring over the last couple. We brought everybody over, and it does look like we were able to destroy one of the Zerg Cerebrits with the Dark Templar. I'm going to hold this one off to the side because it's one of the only ones I have left. and I'm going to continue this assault by moving all of my units over and then just taking out this other Cerebrate. The nice thing is we don't have to go too crazy and destroy everything in the base. We could if we wanted to, but I don't know that it's necessary. Have these couple of Dark Templars attack the Cerebrate to get that final blow, since they're the only ones that can do that. Well, now that we destroyed that second Cerebrate, we do get this victorious message, and this is another amazing mission. I really appreciate having gone through this, and the way that the developers created the map. It made it a nice separation of the two islands, so it's been going really well so far. This is a great time. Here in Mission 4, looking at the map, it is called the Quest for Uraj, and it's pretty large, if I'm honest here. It looks like we start in the top middle, and if we go further south, we see a couple of symbols. There's some plus signs, which stand for bunkers, and then some solid dark circles. That's going to be for photon cannons. I'll do my best to actually remember to place the right amount and also place them in the correct place, so that will be great. Definitely do that for our defenses. Interestingly, at the bottom of the map, it looks like there's a path A and path B. One is the dotted lines and the other one is solid, so that must be a couple of different paths. But we also see an open circle is for Zerglings. We don't have any Zerg on this map because we're facing against the Terrans, so my initial thought is that's probably something that was initially on this level when this guide was being created, and then potentially that specific area wasn't updated at the bottom of the map, so maybe they actually had Zerg when this was first being worked on. Don't know, hard to say, but really interesting nonetheless. If we go into the mission, we start with these shuttles flying over, and the author says that we're going to have the units dropped in. We just need to have them do their thing in order to clear out this staging area and build our own base. One thing he does mention though is to have our Reavers move down and attack specifically this bunker down here. That's going to be really important so we can actually clear out the Marines, and hopefully they don't cause an issue here. There we go. Okay, great. Thanks to having some of the help from Kerrigan here that is now joining us on this mission in order to retrieve one of those Protoss crystals to activate that Xel'Naga temple, we are able to start and establish our own base, which of course per usual is something the author says that we should do basically ASAP. Okay, now that we have our base established, what exactly is the next step from the author? What does he mention? So it looks like he wants us to take these 3 Reavers and then destroy some of the bunkers that are south of the base, right outside of a ramp that we need to go down. Well, we take our Reavers south, and we're going to assault these bunkers because they are very out of range from the Reavers, which is great, except for not when they run up in the enemy's face like that. But we can just have them kind of sit back, and we can take these units out pretty easily. Okay, moving my Reavers down to assault the next bunkers, and for whatever reason, they're wanting to get in the enemy's face, which is not ideal. Please turn around. There we go. Okay. Whew! Oh my gosh. Oh, that was super close. But you know what? We did it. We did the next step that the author suggested. All of the Reavers just by themselves. So there we go. Just a light assault happening on the base right as I was about to pull up the next part of the strategy guide. But you know what? It's better that I had this happen before I officially pulled it up, so the same thing doesn't happen that did in the last mission. But now that we have those bunkers officially cleared, let's see what the author says for the very next step. He wants us to take Kerrigan, have her cloak, and take out a siege tank that is protecting the base to the south of us. This is pretty heavily defended, but let's try this. And sure enough, they used a scan. The author said that that would probably happen and to immediately run her out of there so she does not get destroyed, because if we lose her, we lose the mission. But that went pretty smooth, so let's see what we can do next here. He then wants us to move all of our units down and officially take out that entire base so we can expand there. So very good. So far it's unfolding pretty easily. Well, with the help of these Reavers, they absolutely destroy everything they touch. As long as you don't have too many of those Scarabs go after the same unit, then it's kind of a waste, so try not to do that too often. But this is going really well. We can then expand here shortly. Oh, except I'm getting attacked back at the base, so let's try and stop this from happening. Let's move my Dragoons back. Let's move Kerrigan over to help defend. Oh my gosh! No, I lost Kerrigan. Okay. Well, that's what happens when you have a slight lapse in attention, I suppose. So, yep, let's just start back over from where I had last saved. Well, we did it, everyone. We were able to reload, get back to the same spot that we were at, but this time take out the Terran base so we can actually have our probe here and then try and expand. So this time it went much smoother, thankfully. Alright, and now because I have this base going and the resources are coming in, I'm building these 3 photon cannons, which when I look at the map, that is almost exactly where the author wanted us to. He also said to build a couple up here to the northeastern side of that base, which I'm doing too, to follow the guide and make sure that everything is defended. So, you know what, so far so good. Let's continue. Okay, now that we basically have everything well defended and we have our bases secure, what is the next step? So it looks like we should be building, according to the guide, a balanced force of air and ground units. Although what's interesting is I just actually noticed this. So this mission doesn't allow you to build air units. So if I scroll up here to the probe, and if I go to advanced structures, you'll see that the Stargate is missing. So I'm not able to build that. So we'll do as balanced a force as we can with ground units. There's nothing specific that we're told, so that's just what we'll go by. If we look back at the map alongside what the author suggests, so he says that we can go down the southern path, which he calls Path A, and that's more of a sneaky route, or we could go the other path, which is Path B to the right or the east, and that has a lot more defenses, and we will face a lot more Terrans along the way. He says that the first step is to assault Section 3, where there's a Terran base and some defenses. We want to take Kerrigan, some Dragoons, and make sure and wipe everything out. The author does say that he finds this approach more satisfying than sneaking along Path A. So that's what we'll do. We'll take Path B and first assault that number 3 area. And let's get that started. Well, as expected, this Terran settlement is falling pretty quickly, so that's the next step of the guide. What's the final portion? It looks like the only way that we can move south for our troops is to actually pick them up via shuttle, so that's exactly what we will do next. One thing to watch out for, the author notes, is there's this small grouping of Terrans up here along with these missile turrets, so need to take these out to not have them shoot down any shuttles that we try to ferry over. Well, per the instructions, I tried to get as balanced of a force as I could with a couple of Archons. I have some Zealots, there's also Dragoons, and some Reavers. So I feel like we're probably set to destroy the base. Can't imagine there's a crazy amount. So why don't we get it started? Now is a nice time where we have such an overwhelming force, we don't really have to worry about having a lot of skill at this point. We can just basically attack move our entire army south and run this Terran base over. One of the last things that we have to do after that is make it safe for Kerrigan, so that's exactly what we're doing by this. Now that we cleared the way, we can bring Kerrigan over, drop her off, and she's the one that has to move over to this crystal. And that's the end of the mission. Another successful strategy outside of the part where I actually lost because Kerrigan died, but you know what, overall, everything is going perfectly. Well, why don't we do a quick recap now, because we've gone through 4 out of the 26 missions in the game, and all of them so far have gone well with the strategies, outside of one time we had a rough spot, but that was from my own mistake, so that had nothing to do with the guide. So that brings us to the end of episode 1. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope you had a good time while you were here, and we'll see you on the next video for Guidebound episode 2.